Hey boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to video lesson 3-4, our lesson on the quadratic formula, our fifth and final method for solving quadratic equations. Okay, if we look at the quadratic equation right here, x squared plus 12x plus 32 is equal to 0. I could solve this by factoring. I could solve this by graphing. I could complete the square. Or if I wanted to, I can use the quadratic formula, which of course is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Well, in this case, our a is 1, because I have 1x squared. My b is positive 12, because I have 12x. And c is 32, because I have a 32 at the end. Our c term is 32. So I'm going to take these numbers and plug them into my formula. So I have negative b, which is negative 12, plus or minus the square root of 12 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 32, all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Let's simplify inside the radical first. So I'm going to have negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 12 squared is 144, minus 4 times 1 times 32. Don't tell me here. Let's see. 4 times 32 is 128. Doing that math. All over 2. Inside the radical now, I'll do this in, I guess I'll go back to people. Inside the radical now, I have 144 minus 128, which of course is inside here I have 16. The square root of 16 is 4, so I have negative 12 plus or minus 4 all over 2, which now means, let's go through here, negative 12 plus 4 is negative 8 over 2, which equals negative 4. Or I have negative 12 minus 4, which is negative 16 over 2, which is negative 8. So cutting to the chase here, x equals negative 4 or negative 8. Alright, looking at this guy right here, why it's a guy, I don't know, but looking at this guy right here, I have 2x squared minus 12x plus 18 is equal to 0. I'm noticing now, I could just use my quadratic formula right now, but before I do, I'm just going to divide everything by 2 to make my numbers smaller. This makes it easier to work with. When I do that, I get 1x squared minus 6x plus 9 is equal to 0. Okay, when I do that right now, my a is 1, my b is neg 6, and my c, of course, is, you got it, 9 in Espanol, 9 in Portuguese. So let's go. Let's use our formula. I'm going to have negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, and that's what equals x. So x equals, plugging in now, x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared, which is 36, minus 4 times 1 times c, which is 9, all over 2a, which is 2 times 1. Let's simplify inside the radical first. I'm going to have 36 minus 4 times 1 times 9, which is also 36. So inside the radical, I got 0. So when I'm all set here, all said and done, I got negative 6, which is 6, plus or minus the square root of 0 all over 2. This is one of those times where our quadratic formula is going to give us an answer, just one answer. X equals 6 plus or minus 0, which is 6 over 2, equals 3. So my only answer, x equals 3. Alrighty, you guys are going to try this one right here. Before we do that, though, let's just look at this real quick and let's make sure we know that our A is 3. Our B is, yes, 11. And C, of course, is 4. Go ahead, use our quadratic formula. X equals negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. Go ahead, you guys figure out what X is, and I shall be right back. Okay, what I did is I plugged in our values for A, B, and C into our formula right here. So I had X equals negative B, which is negative 11, plus or minus 11 squared, 121, minus 4, times A, which is 3, times C, which is 4, all over 2 times A, which is 3. When I simplify inside the radical, I get 121 minus 4 times 3 times 4 is 48, all over 2 times 3, which is 6. Inside here, this becomes 73. That's not a perfect square, so let's just leave it alone. My final answer is going to be X equals negative 11 plus or minus, two answers, plus or minus root 73 all over 6. And that is our answer in simplest form. Okay, a new vocabulary word for you here, the discriminant. The discriminant of a quadratic equation is going to be the part of the equation, part of the formula that's inside the radical, b squared minus 4ac. So we can see right here, that's what's inside of our radical. And what happens now, this gives us the nature of our roots. It gives us the nature of our solutions. It gives us the nature of what x equals. If the discriminant is 0, your plus or minus 0 is just going to give you one answer because it's plus or minus 0, so there is no change. So we're going to get one answer. It's going to be a rational root, which means that there is no radical, and that would have been factorable. We could have solved that by factoring if we wanted to. If the discriminant is a perfect square, a positive perfect square, then we're going to have two answers. They're both going to be rational because a perfect square, the radical is going to become a nice rational number. And now, this also would have been factorable. We could have solved this by factoring if I wanted to. If the discriminant is a positive number, but not a perfect square, we're once again going to have two answers, but they're irrational because there's going to be a radical in our answer. And this would not have been factorable. You would not have been able to solve this by factoring. And lastly, if what is inside the radical, our discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, if that had turned out to be negative, that means that we have an imaginary number, because we have a negative inside the radical. We're going to have an imaginary number, and that also would not have been solvable by factoring. So let's look at number 19 here. Let's just find the discriminant, and then we'll decide the nature of our roots to the equation. It's x squared plus 12x plus 36 is equal to 0. So of course now, let's write this down. A is equal to 1, B is equal to 12, and C is equal to 36. Let's throw those three numbers into our discriminant only, just into the discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac. What happens now? Let's throw these numbers in. B squared is 12 squared, which is 144, minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is 36. 4 times 36, of course, is 144. So I have 144 minus 144, which equals 0. So my discriminant is 0, which means I have just one real root, and it happens to be rational. And this would have been factorable, and I'm hoping you can see that this would be x plus 6, x plus 6. So x equals negative 6. I just have one real root that is rational. Okay, let's look at number 20 right here. I got x squared minus x plus 6 is equal to 0. My a is 1. My b is, I wrote a is b. A is 1. B, of course, is negative 1. And c is positive 6. Let's take our numbers and throw them into our discriminant, which is going to be b squared minus 4ac. Okay, I'll switch colors. B, of course, is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1 minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is 6. Okay, so I have 1 minus 4 times 1 times 6 is 24. I have a discriminant of negative 23. My discriminant is negative, so I have 2 imaginary, that says imaginary, roots. Okay, looking at this last one right here, 25. I got 24x is equal to negative 48 minus 3x squared. I want you guys to put that in standard form. Put that in standard form. Find our equation. Find the a, the b, and the c. Plug it into the formula. And the first 5 people to email me with the correct number of roots and describe their nature will get a bonus point on our next test or quiz. Hey, that's all, folks. We shall see you soon.